LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the June 24th edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me. I'll be using the 11 best, most newsworthy clips I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, for which would be a really educational, informative, fair use media criticism and political commentary show for you all today. I also have an epic Cheech and Chong the Kittens clip all the way at the end after all the newsmaker clips. I'm saving that, for my bonus clip of my kittens, Cheech and Chong. Am I overselling it as epic? Well, you have to wait till the end to find out if you really want to know. As you can see from the title of the video, the main topic I'm covering is Biden versus Trump debate this Thursday, which was a main topic of most of the news shows. Covered extensively, not so much on CBS News Face the Nation, although they did have one clip, and not so much on Fox News Sunday, as you'll see from the news summary I'll show you in just a minute as one of the 5 news summaries before the newsmaker clips. But I also want to use a clip from Fox News Sunday, a Fox News bias clip, as my political comedy. It's on a different topic, the US Supreme Court, which was like the theme of the week. Shannon Bream did the whole show outside the US Supreme Court, and she talked in this clip, not from the beginning of the program, like midway through the program before they went to their 2 right-wing legal experts, Jonathan Turley and Thomas Dupree. She talked about some of the big cases still yet to be decided. She said this week, which is technically accurate, although because they haven't extended the term yet, but it seems like almost impossible they'll decide 14 cases this week, which she didn't really explain, but that's not the real bias in this clip. The real bias is in the 4th of the 4 upcoming cases she describes, and I'll talk about that bias a little more after we watch that clip together over here.
We are coming to you live from the Supreme Court. 14 cases left to be decided in the next week. At the top of nearly every watch list is a decision about President Trump's assertion that he has immunity, shielding him from criminal liability in special counsel Jack Smith's case against him. Smith cites his actions during the final days of his presidency. There's also a case involving a January 6th defendant and whether the Justice Department wrongly charged him under a specific obstruction statute that was also used to charge hundreds of others January 6th defendants and President Trump, too. There's also an abortion case, a case testing the boundaries of authority for federal agencies, another one that will impact whether cities and states can ban homeless encampments, and much more.
So yeah, those are the 4 cases that she talked about, and like if you look at that screenshot there, the 4th case, I'm very familiar with that case. It's one that the ACLU has been involved in fighting for the rights of people experiencing homelessness, and there was this case in the Ninth Circuit, Martin v. Boise, that's been extended in this Grants Pass case, and it's actually about the Bill of Rights. One of the Bill of Rights, if you have your handy-dandy Constitution, here I have my ACLU Constitution, you turn to the 8th Amendment, and it says that you have a right not to have cruel or unusual punishment inflicted upon you. That is the right that's actually at issue, the 8th Amendment right in this case, whether it's cruel and unusual punishment to lock people up criminally for being homeless, like sitting, lying, sleeping in public, when there's they don't have means to pay for a place to live, and the people locking up are not making any real offer of shelter to them. So they're just locking them up for being homeless when they're what's called involuntarily homeless. And so it's cruel and unusual punishment, according to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, to punish people criminally for just existing. Now you notice Shannon Bream there, she called that the rights of cities, states to ban homeless camps. The rights of cities and states to ban homeless camps? That's not the question presented in the court. It's a total Fox News spin. Here's what SCOTUS blog called it. They called the issue whether the enforcement of generally applicable laws regulating camping on public property constitutes cruel and unusual punishment prohibited by the Eighth Amendment. And you can read more. I put a link down to that SCOTUS blog entry if you want to read more about the case. But that was totally bogus spin, turning the right of people not to have cruel and unusual punishment inflicted on them just because they're homeless. Oh, and you know what? It reminded me of something that I thought was, I don't know, kind of dark humor from the oral arguments on this case. Something that Justice Sonia Sotomayor said that I saw Mark Joseph Stern tweeted back on the day of the oral arguments, April 22nd. And I took a screenshot of that here. At arguments in Grants Pass, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson are pummeling the Gibson-Dunn attorney defending laws that punish homeless people who sleep outside. Sotomayor asks, if homeless people aren't allowed to sleep anywhere, are they just supposed to kill themselves? So I actually don't have a lot of confidence that the Supreme Court is going to say it's cruel and unusual punishment for cities and states to lock people up just for sitting, lying, or sleeping because they're homeless and they don't have anywhere to go. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Supreme Court, but anyway, that's the issue, and I don't think it was very well represented by Shannon Bream in that clip. And now I'm going to move on to the main topic of the upcoming presidential debates between Biden and Trump this Thursday on CNN, which apparently, like all these networks, are going to simulcast them. So I guess CNN is letting people broadcast them on their own channel, and then they'll have their own commentary. And I don't know if I'll have time to do a live stream about it this week, but I'll definitely be able to cover it next Monday. But this is the preview, and I think the best preview actually came from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Martha Raddatz does this extensive news coverage, both of the different approaches of the Biden and Trump campaigns to the upcoming debate, and then a bunch of clips giving like context and history to this debate. And I will talk about that a little more after we watch this longest of the news summaries together over here.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. We are now just 4 days away from a critical general election debate that could have huge implications for the 2024 race. The campaigns this week are a study in contrast. President Biden with no public campaign events at all as he hunkers down at Camp David with advisors in full debate prep mode. Meanwhile, former President Trump hit the trail in D.C. and Philadelphia Saturday, saying his campaign events are his debate prep.
My strategy is very simple. Make America great again, that's all. Because our country's going to hell. And we're going to turn it around fast. There's no strategy. We're going to turn it around fast. And I look forward to Thursday. I know he's locked up in a log cabin someplace. You can imagine what he's doing.
With less than 5 months to Election Day, the campaign battle lines are becoming more stark. At a private fundraiser this week, President Biden saying it's clearer every day the threat Trump poses would be greater in a second term than it was in his first term. And the two squared off this week on the key issue of immigration after Biden's action to provide protections for some undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens.
And the reason is simple. It embraces the American principle that we should keep families together. We can both secure the border and provide legal pathways to citizenship.
Trump hitting back on the issue at his Philly rally last night.
By this time next year, America borders will be strong, sealed, and secure. They will be strong, sealed, and people will come into our country, but they will come in legally.
It's all leading to Thursday night when the two men will stand together on the same stage for the first time since 2020. It's an earlier than ever debate that the Biden campaign wanted, with Vice President Kamala Harris laying out what's at stake.
Joe Biden and this debate will make clear the contrast. November of 2024 is binary. And when you look at the difference, I would ask people to really imagine what the world will be like on January 20th, 2025.
Both sides will do their best to spin before and after, but it's clear this debate will feel different, with the chaos of the first 2020 fall debate between Biden and Trump setting up the high stakes and new rules for this week's showdown.
I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that
because
question?
the question is,
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is
It was the debate that spiraled out of control.
Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me. This.
Hey, let me just say to you.
Remembered not for policy discussions or laying out a vision for America or even for a debate, but for moments like this.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right.
And personal insults like this.
And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me.
The first 2024 presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, now just 4 days away, set to be very different from the chaos of 4 years ago. It comes at an earlier point than ever before, and weeks before either candidate will officially accept their party's nomination.
Is anybody going to watch the debate?
Former President Trump agreeing to parameters proposed by the Biden campaign. The most significant difference, microphones will be muted throughout the debate, except for the candidate whose turn it is to speak, after interactions like this 4 years ago.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
He stood up.
No,
He stood up
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
That
don't get rid of
is
the
absolutely
you know what,
not
stop.
true.
You're doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen.
And this,
He told us what a great job she was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
just 2
March
minutes.
exactly
it's so
what we
wrong.
should be doing.
also a change, no audience. In 2016, just days after the release of the now infamous Access Hollywood tape, Trump spotlighted 4 women who had accused former President Bill Clinton of sexual assault. At a debate I co-moderated, his campaign wanted to seat them in his VIP box, igniting a backstage firestorm. But they were in the hall that night, and the audience overall was rowdy to the point of distraction.
In the first debate,
And we
in the
really,
first
the
debate,
audience needs to
I
calm
told
down
people
here.
that it would be impossible to be fact-checking Donald all the time. It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
But in the final debate of 2020, the candidates had learned some lessons after their first debate of that year, although it was hardly a shining example of civility.
You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a lot of it done. We released 38,000. We got 38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
And on that note, let's bring in our experts on the history and politics of debates.
And yeah, the expertise on the history and politics of debates was also good. I'm not going to show you a clip of that. I'm going to show you a clip later of Elizabeth Warren talking about the debates where Martha Raddatz tries to interrupt her when she can't hear her. That's like clip 9 and 10 if you hang on for those. By the way, down in the video description under media mention, I put short summaries of all 11 clips, and then under sources there are links to that tweet from Mark Joseph Stern and that SCOTUS blog entry about the Grants Pass case and the sources of all my clips, so you can look down there if you want any of that information. Like I said, I thought that was the best, and also it was the longest of the news summaries on my main topic. It didn't have my favorite Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump debate where Hillary Clinton calls him Putin's puppet, and he's like no puppet, you're the puppet. That's my favorite line of like the whole 2016 campaign, honestly. But because it's kind of encapsulates Donald Trump's strategy of like denial and then projection. That's how he always responds to any attack. Not me, not me. You're even more whatever than I am. Like, I'm rubber, you're glue. He has a very low style of debate, let's say, and I think it will not play as well with no audience. That's one of the things I think is true from that debate. That is one thing I think will favor Joe Biden. But I want to keep going through the news summaries. The next one is NBC News Meet the Press. Peter Alexander was in this week and talked basically just about what to expect from the Biden versus Trump debate this Thursday. A little bit of a different spin, but still journalistic and worth watching over in this clip.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Peter Alexander, in for Kristen Welker. It has been more than 1,300 days since the last debate between President Biden and former President Trump, the last time either man appeared on a debate stage. In 4 days, they will face off again in the earliest general election debate in history and what may be the most consequential face-to-face in decades. The two candidates and their allies have signaled that they will attempt to portray each other in the most negative light possible, casting Mr. Trump as an unhinged felon and President Biden as not physically or mentally equipped to serve another term.
Crooked Joe's gone to a log cabin to study, prepare. No, he didn't. He's sleeping now. Because they want to get him good and strong, so a little before debate time, he gets a shot in the ass.
The things he said are off the wall. I want to be a dictator on day one. I want to move in a direction where he talks about, suspending the Constitution. All I have to do is hear what he says, remind people what he says and what I believe and what he believes.
The stakes are high. More than 73 million people tuned into the first Biden-Trump debate in 2020. And President Biden is spending the weekend at Camp David, hunkering down in formal debate prep. The president's personal lawyer, Bob Bauer, is playing the role of Mr. Trump, reprising his role from 2020. Mr. Trump was on the campaign trail on Saturday. Aides say that he's going to spend time this week meeting privately with advisors at his Florida estate as part of a more informal debate prep process. President Biden, in closed-door fundraisers and on the trail, has previewed what will be one of his key debate messages, that Mr. Trump is now a greater threat to the country than during his time in office.
The threat that Trump poses is greater in his second term than his first. It's clear that when he lost in 2020, something literally snapped in the sky. Now, he's running again, and he's clearly unhinged.
Trump allies are pushing the former president to focus on President Biden's record and some of his own plans, instead of venting about the legal cases against him and repeating false claims of election fraud. President Biden's team expects aggressive attacks on the president's record on immigration and the economy in particular. Tomorrow marks the 2-year anniversary of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, and both the president and vice president are making the fight to protect reproductive rights central to their campaign.
I think that the debate is going to make clear the contrast between our president, the current president, who works on behalf of the American people, fights for the American people, and the former president, who pretty much spends full time fighting for himself.
Mr. Trump's vice presidential shortlist has gotten even shorter. In interviews with NBC News, more than a dozen sources wired into the process tell us that North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance are now emerging as the top finalists. Florida Senator Marco Rubio remains in contention, but those sources say there are doubts about Rubio's enthusiasm for the job. Both Burgum and Vance were asked this week whether they want to be VP.
When he makes that decision, it's solely up to him, and he's the guy that controls the criteria. There's never been a better politician, a better debater, a better communicator.
I think that's ultimately, that's Donald Trump's choice, whether he selects me as vice president. I feel very comfortable with the fact that I could do the job. But look, you have to have some humility going into this, too.
And on Saturday, NBC News asked Mr. Trump whether his vice presidential pick will come to Thursday's debate.
Most likely, yeah. He'll be there.
Have you decided who your vice president is?
In my mind, yeah.
Do they know?
No, nobody knows.
And joining me now is Mitch Landrieu, national co-chair for President Biden.
And I actually have an extensive Mitch Landrieu clip where I think he previews what Joe Biden could best do at the debate, what his best talking points. And speaking of vice presidents, I've done a couple different Monday media mix-ups showing the vice presidential candidates auditioning to be vice president on the Sunday shows. This week I do have another clip of Doug Burgum, sort of as the opposite of Mitch Landrieu. Mitch Landrieu is co-chair of the Biden campaign. Doug Burgum is trying out to be vice president, and they're both have their alternating talking points as to what would be the best thing to say at the debate when they're asked about the debate. One thing I would criticize that NBC News Meet the Press News Summary for doing is they showed a clip there of Donald Trump saying, Joe Biden, he's sleeping now before the debate, and then they're going to give him a shot in the ass or whatever right beforehand, or that's this one talking point you hear on the right all the time that Joe Biden is taking drugs. He was drugged up for the State of the Union. He's gonna be jacked up. I've heard that over and over again on Fox News, and you'll see actually when I get to the CNN State of the Union news summary, they show a clip of Trump saying that Biden's going to be jacked up. And then Caitlin Collins, who's hosting this week, because, of course, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash are both preparing for the debate, she comes on and she does a fact check and says it's a baseless claim that Joe Biden is taking drugs to enhance his performance. But that's you'll see Doug Burgum makes this point that I also saw on Fox News multiple times today, that, which Biden is going to show up? Is it going to be the sleepy Joe who gets confused, or the one who's all jacked up on whatever they think he's jacked up on? And anyway, so Meet the Press, if they're going to show that clip, they should point out some of the, that Trump is saying something baseless like that. The next longest news summary is actually the Fox News Sunday one. Basically nothing about the debate. They focus more on immigration and foreign policy in ways that they're trying to make Biden look bad. It's pretty much spun according to how you would expect from a propaganda outlet of the Republican Party, which, of course, is what Fox News was created to be by Roger Ailes, is detailed in this book over here, The Loudest Voice in the Room by Gabriel Sherman. But I digress. Let's watch Shannon Bream and Mike Emanuel give their spin on how the world's falling apart and the border's out of control and, it's causing migrant crime. They put that in at the end over in this clip.
Hello from outside the Supreme Court on Capitol Hill here in Washington. Every June, it comes down to this: the final opinions from the Supreme Court as they prepare to wrap up the term. June is where most of the justices' landmark decisions fall. Many of them have changed the course of our country's future. Tomorrow, for example, is the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision. That overturned the court's 1973 ruling in Roe v. Wade and said the Constitution does not guarantee a right to abortion, sending the power to regulate the procedure back to lawmakers. This year, it's possible that what the court decides could alter the course of the 2024 presidential election. In a moment, we'll talk with Senators Chris Coons and Lindsey Graham, both of the Senate Judiciary Committee, about that and much more. But first, we turn to Mike Emanuel. Hello, Mike.
The White House is closely watching for the next Supreme Court rulings, particularly the decision over whether former President Trump should have immunity from prosecution. Mr. Trump's chance of having a pre-election trial in D.C. depends on the court's ruling. It's been a busy week for President Biden, who remains at Camp David this week, focused on preparing for Thursday's CNN presidential debate against his predecessor, Donald Trump. The work does not stop, and plenty of problems continue to pile on his desk, including the tightening relationship between Russia and North Korea. The administration concerned over the show of force between Russian President Vladimir Putin on an official visit to North Korea to visit the isolated Kim Jong-un, the visit to establish a stronger support system to share weapons between the two countries. Also on the foreign policy front, increased tensions between the White House and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's expected to address Congress in Washington at the end of next month. While the U.S. continues to support Israel publicly, behind the scenes, the relationship is reportedly frayed. To the southern border now, President Biden recently announcing another executive action which will make it easier for undocumented spouses of American citizens to apply for permanent residency without leaving the country. While certainly not all people crossing the border pose problems, authorities recently charged 2 illegal immigrants with the killing of Jocelyn Nungare in Texas. She was just 12 years old and her family is devastated. Rachel Morans, a Maryland mother of 5, was killed last August. Authorities recently charged an illegal immigrant for the crime. The White House expressed condolences, but critics say it is not enough, and the administration has been far too soft on the border. Shannon?
Mike Emanuel, thank you so much. Joining us now is Delaware Senator Chris Coons, who sits on the...
And critics say, especially on Fox News, those critics say that like multiple times an hour, every hour, all day, every day. I've shown you the Biden's border crisis, and they're basically trying to increase the potency of that issue for Donald Trump as much as possible to increase his chance of election, because that is basically the aim of Fox News. As I was talking about before, I showed the clip, and they talked a little bit about Biden's debate prep at Camp David, but then immediately pivoted to, well, the world's falling apart, basically. And anyway, that's the news summary from Fox News, such as it is. The next one from CBS News Face the Nation. They took a whole different perspective this week, talking about the heat dome, and Mark Strassman's back from Atlanta, which is where the debate's going to be, does not actually, Mark Strassman from Atlanta doesn't report on the debate. And also they do this whole story about the heat dome. They mention like could be, it's going to be one of the hottest years already, and might be the hottest year ever. Never say the words climate change, though. I don't know why they didn't say climate change over in this clip.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. We begin this morning with an update on the heat dome covering much of the country. Roughly 100 million Americans are living under a heat advisory today. Mark Strassman has more from Atlanta.
Especially in the Northeast, Sunday's heat will feel hellish.
Best thing I can tell you, don't come outside.
Potentially record-setting temperatures, definitely dangerous.
The heat, it is being felt from the Ohio Valley all the way into the mid-Atlantic. 98 today in D.C. will feel like 104.
It's too hot today. Too hot. Definitely. It's difficult to walk around today.
We're barely into summer. Yet NOAA says there's a 100% chance 2024 will be among the top 5 warmest years on record, and a 50% chance it becomes the hottest ever. Parts of New Mexico feel hellish, and they look it.
And thank God we're safe and we have somewhere. There's a lot of people that don't have anywhere to go.
Twin wildfires, only partially contained, have charred more than 24,000 acres. Hundreds of homes destroyed, thousands evacuated, and 2 people killed. These are images of Ruidoso, this resort village and outdoor paradise in ruins.
Everything that they've worked for their entire lives just lost in a matter of seconds. It's very devastating.
Also potentially devastating here, widespread flash flooding, an outgrowth of the wildfires and heavy rain. Flooding and mountains of muck could push over land scarred by the fires.
I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. It was absolutely the most scariest thing I've ever seen.
That was Mark Strassman reporting from Atlanta. And we turn now to New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham.
And yes, they talked to a governor who has wildfires in her state, but that was kind of sensationalized. I talked about how disasters that make good video get more coverage, and they covered some of that part, but where was the part, they did talk about the hottest, 50% chance of being in the top, or 100% chance that this year will be in the top 5, and 50% chance it'll be the hottest year ever, but nothing about climate change or carbon emissions, or I don't know if that's corporate media or why they don't do that, but that's my criticism there. And then the finest, shortest news summary, the final shortest news summary comes from Caitlin Collins, who's in for Dana Bash and Jake Tapper this week on CNN State of the Union. And I talked about this earlier. I think this is good to juxtapose to the NBC News Meet the Press news summary, which covered the same information in like more than twice the length and didn't do the fact checking that Caitlin Collins does over here.
Good morning. I'm Caitlin Collins, in for Jake Tapper and Dana Bash here in New York, where the State of our Union is in debate prep. In just 4 days, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are going to meet for a historic CNN presidential debate with the potential to dramatically reshape what has been a remarkably stable race for the White House. President Biden at Camp David, where he's huddling with his full debate team of advisors leading up to Thursday night, as he is looking to shake off Trump's attacks on his age and his abilities, and also trying to turn the focus back on his opponent's felony conviction and also his proposals for a second term. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is foregoing formal debate prep and instead holding more informal meetings with his senior advisors, as sources tell me that he is soliciting advice from pretty much everybody in his inner circle. Trump is also trying to lower expectations and suggesting that President Biden could prove to be more formidable than expected.
They want to get him good and strong, so a little before debate time, he gets a shot in the ass. I say he'll come out all jacked up, right?
Nope, that is a baseless claim. It comes after Trump spent months effectively lowering expectations for Biden. Trump also said yesterday that he does expect his upcoming vice presidential pick to be with him in Atlanta on Thursday. It's been a who's who of VP contenders that are going to be tuning in together at a debate watch party in Atlanta. That includes my next guest, one of Trump's top contenders to be his vice president, Republican governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum.
And that's the next clip I'm going to show you is the Doug Burgum clip, but you saw the same clip that NBC News Meet the Press showed. You know, he's going to get a shot in the ass and then they added the all jacked up, and that fact check was there from CNN, no fact check from NBC. And it's important because this is like the game that the Republicans are playing, and you're going to see it, like I said, from Doug Burgum in this next clip, like which of the two Bidens is going to show up. I mean, sometimes we ask that about Trump, although there's really only one Trump, and he can like try to hold it in for a little while, but there's really only one Trump who's going to show up. That's like 90% sure. I mean, we've been waiting for Trump to pivot for like 8 years now, and I don't believe he's going to pivot. But for Joe Biden, either, you know, he'll like make some mistake, he'll mess up a name, or he'll like pause or stutter, and that, you know, that's something that the right wing will pounce upon. And especially if he like confuses something, I mean, that will, you know, that's which of the two Bidens is going to show up. Is it going to be the old confused Biden, or if he's like more aggressive and he's actually does well in the debate, then they have this whole you know, amped up, jacked up. Doug Burgum doesn't quite say that he's going to be on drugs, but he does come up with some of the talking points you will probably expect to hear from Trump at the debate. He in like two different answers, he mentions Hunter Biden's laptop. So I would expect to hear about Hunter Biden's laptop at least once and maybe multiple times from Trump at the debate. That's one of my predictions. And I got that idea from watching Doug Burgum over here.
This debate is going to be huge. It's in 4 days from now. How critical do you believe it is for Donald Trump to have a strong performance?
Well, I think it's something that America is very excited to look forward to, and I'm sure it's going to be a very good debate. And congratulations to CNN for having this historic debate. But I think, again, you know, there has been a real effort on the Biden team to try to lower expectations. But I think we have to look at the guy's run for office more than a dozen times. He's run for president 4 times. He's been campaigning since President Nixon was in office. This guy has got the ability, and we've seen it. We've seen him in debate 4 years ago. We've seen him in the State of the Union this year. That when he needs to, he can step up. But I think this is a real opportunity for CNN, most trusted name in news, to ask some tough questions, including, you know, because this is a rematch. And when we had this debate just before the election 4 years ago, Joe Biden looked into the camera and said, you know, that Hunter Biden's laptop was a smear campaign, Russian disinformation, called it garbage, and now we know that none of that is true. And I think this is an opportunity. I think America's waiting. I mean, CNN's got an opportunity to ask tough questions of both these candidates.
Yeah, I think safe to say there will be tough questions for everybody. But it's interesting that you say Biden is lowering expectations because Trump has also been doing that. You yourself have called Biden infirm. I mean, you have been setting the bar pretty low for President Biden. Is that a mistake?
Well, I don't know if it's a mistake or not. I mean, I think I think America sort of looks at the state of the state. He stood up and he spoke strongly for over an hour. And then when we're with a group of governors with him back in February, we were limited to 2 questions. One Republican governor and one Democrat each got to ask a question. 40 governors. We get 2 questions with the president. Questions had to be submitted 2 days in advance. That's a far cry from standing in a debate for 90 minutes. So I think we're all anxious to see which Joe Biden is going to show up.
But you think that Biden will be formidable?
Well, I think he really knows how to do this. And like I said, he convinced America that laptop was fake so strongly at that last debate that then the news agencies and social media then started shutting down even the ability to post about that story. And if he was that good about lying about that 4 years ago, I guess the question would be, when did he know that the laptop was real? And what might he do this time that would convince the American people?
He was citing that letter from the intelligence officials. I mean, we've asked them about that since. And obviously, the whole issue with social media was before the debate. But I want to ask you about something that you've been saying repeatedly.
So, yeah, that was some fact-checking from Caitlin Collins. It was pretty good, and I think it's a preview of what we're going to hear from Trump at the debate. If the moderators don't ask about Hunter's laptop and what Biden said about Hunter's laptop 4 years ago at a debate with Donald Trump, I'm sure we're going to hear Donald Trump bring it up. There's one thing, Doug Burgum made like a minor mistake there, but it's the kind of thing they'll pounce on if Biden does during the debate. He talked about how good Biden was at the state of the state. The state of the state is basically the State of the Union address that governors give. He's a governor, so that's probably why he made that mistake. But he's like on the CNN show State of the Union, and he forgets what the State of the Union is called and calls it the State of the State. Can you imagine if Joe Biden did that, how they would pounce on that? And yeah, but just a minor mistake. Probably most people didn't even notice. But I gave Doug Burgum there a chance to lay out some of the talking points you'll probably hear from Trump at the debate being previewed. And I believe in this next clip, Mitch Landrieu does the same thing as co-chair of the National Biden campaign. I actually let this go on a little more extensively. I think they're actually pretty good talking points. If Mitch Landrieu is showing you what Biden's going to do at the debate on Thursday, I think it's going to be a good debate for Biden. And I will talk about that a little more after we watch that clip together over here.
President Biden asked for this debate in June, the earliest general election debate in history. Aides privately tell me that the campaign was looking for an opportunity to shake up a race that has largely been static for months here. Is President Biden the underdog in this debate?
No, I don't think so. The president has debated Donald Trump twice and beat him twice already. The president is really anxious to tell his story to the American people, as he has been doing for the past 3.5 years. Listen, this race is going to be tight. Everybody knows that. It's going to come down to a couple of votes in a couple of really important states. And it's important for the country to see the difference between these two men. Joe Biden wakes up every day thinking about the American people, fighting hard for regular folks, thinking about ways to lift everybody up. Donald Trump wakes up every day pretty much thinking about himself, thinking about his rich friends, and then really thinking about ways to hurt people with the power that he would have if he were the president of the United States again. And I think the president wants to be really clear about the difference between those two that everybody will see again on Thursday.
And Mitch, let me ask you, will you at least concede that this is a high reward, high risk strategy for President Biden, given the doubts that Americans have about his ability to serve another 4 years?
Well, listen, everything that we do is high risk. I mean, every campaign that you have is going to be close. So everything that you do has to work. It has to be thoughtful. But when the American people continue to see Donald Trump do and say the things he's done before, the American people are going to go, I don't want a guy that thinks about himself and his rich friends. I want somebody that thinks about me, that is fighting for myself. So I expect President Biden to do an excellent job, just like he did in the last 2 debates. It really doesn't matter how Donald Trump shows up. If he comes in unhinged like he is most of the time, or he sits there and is quiet, people are going to know that he's a twice impeached, convicted felon who's been found to have defamed somebody, sexually abused somebody, and gone bankrupt 6 times. They will always know that, and that is something that the American people have to think about the wisdom, the character, and the judgment of the person that they're going to appoint to lead America, not only at home, but also to the rest of the world.
And as you know well, top of mind for so many Americans right now, both the economy and inflation. Despite limited signs of improvement for President Biden, polls consistently show that voters prefer Mr. Trump over President Biden when it comes to handling the economy. So how do you change the minds of those Americans who say they are still not feeling the progress that you promote?
Well, first of all, those feelings are really important and they're real. But to remind people that when President Biden took over, the country was in the midst, as you know, of COVID. They were in the midst of, as you now know, an insurrection and an economic cataclysmic downfall. President Biden came to the rescue. He passed 4 of the biggest domestic pieces of legislation that was seen in our country's history. He's created 15 million jobs, the lowest unemployment rate that was seen in the last 50 years. But the problem is that all of those benefits are not flowing down to everybody as quickly as possible. And that's why Joe Biden every day is fighting to save people money by fighting for lower prescription drug costs, fighting for health care, fighting to make sure people have access to housing, fighting to make sure big oil and all of the big companies are not taking profits when they're not supposed to, and making sure that everybody has a better chance to support their families.
And Mitch, just to be very clear, you just mentioned housing. Their home prices right now have hit a record high. The median U.S. home price is $419,000. You were talking about food prices as well. Those costs are up 20% since the start of the Biden presidency. I want to ask you specifically about the debate. There's going to be no studio audience, and a candidate's microphone is going to be muted when it is not their turn to speak. If the Biden campaign's intention is to show Trump being Trump, with all the interruptions that we saw back in that first debate in 2020, does this in some way prove to be an advantage for Donald Trump? Does it cause a bigger risk for Joe Biden?
I don't know. I mean, who knows what Donald Trump is going to do at any minute or any time. I'm going to bet that he's going to talk over the microphone 100 times like he does because he's a bully. But the best way to fight a bully is to stand up to him. And Joe Biden has done that before. He's going to do it again. The fact still remains that Donald Trump's presidency was awful. 17 of his cabinet members left and said, please don't elect him again. 3 of the people that he's thinking about picking as vice president that are on his top list actually asked the American people not to listen to Donald Trump because he was a fraud. So this is a really clear choice. You can have a great guy that's got great character, great judgment, great wisdom, that fights for the American people, or you can have a guy that thinks about himself and just wants to hurt everybody who's not for him.
Let me
ask you about... It's going to be a pretty clear choice, and the American people will get it right.
Well, they're going to get a chance to see these 2 men side by side just 4 days from now. Let me ask you about a new ad from the Biden campaign that was just released that focuses heavily on Mr. Trump's felony convictions. It calls him a, quote, convicted criminal who is only out for himself. Will Joe Biden make that same argument on the debate stage?
Well, I'll let the president say what he's going to say, but the fact of the matter is that the sky is blue sometimes, and Donald Trump is a convicted felon. And the American people have to sit in that for a second. The person who wants to be president has to go sit with his probation officer before he actually goes to the debate. And so it is just a fact, but it's not just to call Donald Trump a convicted felon. It goes to his behavior, and it goes to his character. Remember, he's actually filed bankruptcy 6 times. That means that he's not just a bad business guy. It means he's screwed all the small people who actually relied on him for a living. And so the American people are going to see that. When you have 17 cabinet members and his chief of staff saying to you, I witnessed this guy, the people who know Donald Trump, the people who know Donald Trump the best like him the least. That's worth taking a moment on to think about whether or not this guy's just going to be better next time at being bad.
And to be
So yeah, I thought those extended talking points were really good, and there are a lot of talking points on the economy and a bunch of actual issues. But in terms of Donald Trump, I got a comment on the recorded version of one of my live streams like 3 months ago. I think it was the March 18th live stream. I just took a screenshot of it here from HHGV8MX. I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to pronounce that, but what would be your number one argument to convince someone not to vote for Donald Trump? And I mean, the shortest version is Donald Trump doesn't care about anyone but himself. That's he's not, and you saw that in, they talked about the convicted felon part there, but it's really who only cares about himself. He's not fighting for you. Biden's fighting for you, or Biden, cares about, people like me. I think Biden actually does better on that than Trump. And if he doesn't, then they just need to work harder, because everything Trump does comes back to, what is best for Donald Trump. And his whole, well, not even just his whole political career, his whole career, the bank, just like Mitch Landry was talking about there, the bankruptcies, the not paying workers, the fraud, the defamation and sexual abuse that he was found liable for, and of course the falsifying business records to keep certain things secret and not disclosed as campaign contributions so he could win the 2016 election. Everything supports that really short answer to the question, what's the best argument? That, Donald Trump is self-centered, out for himself. It's like his defining characteristic, and it's not good for a president. Healthy ego, even narcissism, but malignant narcissism like Donald Trump. All presidents have to be narcissists to some extent, but the malignant narcissism of Donald Trump, it's just next level. Anyway, I kind of went off on a rant there, and I want to show some coverage from a couple more of the news shows. First, I want to show when Elizabeth Warren, after talking about immigration and some more substantive issues with Martha Raddatz for a while on ABC's This Week, Martha Raddatz ended asking about the debate, and then Elizabeth Warren was answering, and Martha Raddatz had one more question, and it sounded like Elizabeth Warren was filibustering, but she really wasn't. And Martha Raddatz ended up apologizing, as I will now show you with two different clips. Here's first Elizabeth Warren answering, also giving some good talking points for the debate over here.
I want to end on this debate that is very important on Thursday. Just quickly, if you could, what are you expecting? You were on debate stage with President Biden before.
Joe Biden is going to be Joe Biden, and that means he's going to draw the contrast. He'll be out there for working families. He's going to say $35 insulin, and 5 million people have seen their student loan debts canceled. He's going to talk about getting rid of junk fees and how his administration is going after the price gougers at the oil pump and the grocery store. And that's the contrast with Donald Trump, who's been out there telling his words, rich as hell donors, that if they will just give more money to his campaign, then he's going to cut taxes for billionaires, for oil companies, and for the very price gougers that right now are picking Americans' pockets.
A yes or no question. Do you expect it to be?
Is key. It's about who you fight for. Joe Biden
yes or
fights
no?
For working families. He fights for women to have freedom,
Senator,
their own decisions. He fights for our democracy. Donald Trump fights for billionaires.
Senator, I feel like I'm moderating a debate.
No one else.
Senator, thank you for that. But I just very, very quick question. Chaos or not chaos?
I've lost you. I can't hear you.
Okay. We'll leave it at that, and we'll leave it to our historians to talk about that again after the debate. Thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it. We're right there at the end.
And I think that thank you did not get to Elizabeth Warren. It was almost like the Zoom meeting from hell there. And on kind of a lighter note, here's Martha Raddatz after Elizabeth Warren is gone after the commercial over here.
I want to say that Elizabeth Warren could not hear me in my last question. I kept trying to interrupt her. She kept talking. She couldn't hear. So apologies to her for that last exchange.
So yeah, that's what happened on ABC, but still, Elizabeth Warren had some good talking points, and also about whose side Trump is on there, and who is, he's out for the rich and the billionaires, and not out really for the working class. But the final newsmaker clip I want to show you before the epic Cheech and Chong the kitten clip I promised at the beginning of the program is CBS News' Face the Nation. Now, they didn't really ask their newsmakers about the debate. It was more of a national security you saw the governor of of New Mexico on talking about the wildfires there, not asked about the debate. And then the two other people, they had Robert O'Brien, who wanted to do foreign policy in the next Trump administration, talking about Trump foreign policy objectives. And then Mike Morrell, former director, was it director of the CIA or director of National Intelligence, DNI or CIA, I can't remember. Anyway, but of course none of them talked about the debate. But Face the Nation did this thing, which I've kind of criticized before, where they do focus groups, where they have like representative voters and they're supposed to, be split. This one, they say it's kind of weird. 6 voters evenly split between who they're going to vote for from 4 of the 7 battleground states. Like 6 voters from 4 of 7. I mean, what is this? Like a Borg on Star Trek Voyager? No, 6 of 4. No, 6 of 4 of 7 of 9. That's what that would be. But, I criticize it because the people are like, they're trying to represent too much, and they talk and they talk. And what I found really notable about the focus group that they showed on Face the Nation is how much the Trump supporters parroted the talking points I hear on Fox News when I watch it so much during the week. And they repeat these talking points over and over again, and I guess they seep into the Trump voters. Apparently there's an entire hour of this focus group on the YouTube channel for Face the Nation. You can also see that Mike Morrell and Robert O'Brien interview if you want, or the Governor Lujan of Mexico, Lujan Grisham, right? I can't even remember her name, but anyway, down at a link in the video description under sources, you can see the entire CBS News Face the Nation episode, plus apparently an hour of this focus group. Here's them just talking about the debate, and you can hear some of the talking points from both sides that come out, I guess, over in the final newsmaker clip I'm going to watch with you today over here.
How many of you plan to watch the presidential debate on Thursday? Raise your hand if you're going to watch. Do any of you feel like you could be persuaded by these candidates to vote for the other one? Like if Donald Trump says something really compelling, would you switch from Joe Biden or vice versa?
I would fall over if he said anything worth listening to.
Well, Trump already said he wanted to be a dictator. That was enough for me.
Exactly.
Well, I don't think you can take any of their words literally anymore. It's mostly political theater and comedy.
Yeah.
So there's some entertainment value there to be had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is indeed for sure.
So
Donald Trump means it when he says he wants to be a dictator. He means it.
I know he wants revenge as well.
So if I can jump in here, it's a show. He is from New York. He is a showman. He may be a blowhard. He may say things, but in the end, he knows how good this country has been to him in making him a success. So the things that he says, we basically listen with one ear, goes in one ear, goes out the other, and you try to go through the weeds to find out what really is going on.
That's so interesting you say that you put aside what he says. Do you have kids?
Yes. I have 2 sons who are in the Air Force.
It's sort of the opposite of how you parent, right? Like you probably don't tell your boys, say whatever. You probably held them to account when they said something that they shouldn't have said. Why do you think you view this man who is going to be potentially commanding your sons into the battlefield to a different standard?
No, I don't hold him to a different standard. I'm not saying I appreciate or even like the type of stuff that sometimes comes out of his mouth. His show, The Apprentice, again, he had to be a showman. So that does it make it right? No, I don't agree with that at all. However, we've had 4 years with him. A lot of us liked, what he did for our country, but that doesn't mean we liked the things he said or how he sometimes acted.
A huge part of the reason why I'm for voting for Trump is economics and inflation.
So there you go. I don't know exactly how representative those 6 people are. I mean, except maybe representative of people who soak up the Fox News talking points and become Trump voters. But I kind of like Margaret Brennan's soft cross-examination about, do you have kids? Would you accept that from your kids? Although the one thing she actually said, in one ear and out the other, that is not a really solid argument for how you want to treat what a politician says. I mean, maybe take it with a grain of salt. In one ear, out the other. That, I don't know. That did not play well in my mind, but you can let me know what you think about that brief discussion that started with the debate, but then talked about Trump's showmanship, going back to The Apprentice and all that. Anyway, like I said, that's the last newsmaker clip. By the way, I made an edited, produced video I uploaded on Friday. If you haven't seen it, it's called, what is it called? I have it. Oh, yeah. Fox News hosts embarrassed themselves trying to look smart. It's only 2 minutes, 15 seconds long. It's gotten over a couple thousand views. If you can go to my channel and check it out if you're interested. And then I did promise at the beginning of the program that I had an epic Cheech and Chong the kitten clip. This is, well, a bunch of silly troublemakers that led to some changes in which way we hang the toilet paper on the roll over here. So yeah, it wasn't just Cheech on the toilet paper roll. Chong played a role. It was a Cheech and Chong conspiracy. But anyway, I thought that was an epic clip. You tell me, did I oversell it? Did I oversell it? I don't think I oversold it. But anyway, I will be back next Monday and every Monday through the inauguration of Joe Biden or Donald Trump or whoever it turns out to be in January 2025. I may have some opportunity or reason to upload a video before then. I may even do one of the debate on Thursday. Depends on how various events pan out during the week. But whatever else happens, I will be back next Monday and every Monday through January 2025. So until I'm back with something on my channel or my next Monday media mix-up, I guess I'll be seeing all of you around the internet.